Hello, and welcome to Don't Be Scared of Us, Episode 1, Don't Get the Wrong Idea. I'm your host, London, and with me today to talk about misconceptions and stereotypes regarding today's teens are Mickey
Hi, I'm Mickey.
and Evos.
Hi, I'm Evos.
So to start today's episode, I found some statements online about teenagers today, and I'm going to go through them with Mickey and Evos, and we are going to discuss whether we think it's true or not regarding today's teenagers. So our first statement today is today's teenager is almost never seen without a phone or an earpiece. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I think it's pretty true, but I don't think it's true in a negative way. Most adults, when they see or talk about how we always do have like AirPods in or on our phone, I think that personally, at least for me, when I have my AirPods in, I like to listen to music a lot. And to me, when I have my AirPods in, it helps me focus and it like quiets my brain. So I don't think it's in the negative way that adults usually make it seem to be.
Yeah, also people always saying that we're addicted to our phones and stuff, but if they had phones when they were kids, they would also be addicted to it. Like they were addicted to their Game Boys and whatever. They're always talking about how oh yeah, we always spent time outside because we had nothing else to do.
Yeah, and they were at our age, they were probably addicted to other stuff. Like I know in the 90s it was a lot of video games and other things. And they're just
Exactly.
and right now that all the like my parents and I know a lot of other parents, they're just as addicted to their phone as so-called I am. Like I don't think I'm addicted, but they're just as much on their phone as me.
Exactly.
Like playing Block Blast.
Block Blast and Candy Crush and
Yeah,
scrolling through
actually.
Facebook.
And those Instagram reels have a hold on my mom.
And they're always AI too.
Yeah, they were always fake and cringy.
Kind of related to that technology statement, another idea about teenagers today is that we are tech savvy. Would you agree with that?
No. No. I could not name one person that I'm friends with that actually knows anything to do with coding.
Well, not even just coding, because in the article it did mention it in the terms of websites and how to navigate online.
I think we're probably better than probably the older generations because we're on it so much.
Yeah, we
But
were raised with it.
if they told me to set up a projector, I would have no clue how to do that. or connect my phone to the TV. It'd probably take me like a couple minutes to figure it out.
Yeah, I think definitely some people that I know are a lot more tech savvy than I personally am. But I think that's more of a personality thing and not more of a general thing.
Yeah, definitely personality, 100%.
Yeah, we're more used to and comfortable with using technology, I would say, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we know everything to do with it and how to really navigate everything.
Yeah, I agree.
So, one of the next ones is teens seem to live for the next selfie or DM. Essentially, our lives revolve so much around social media. I personally don't agree with that statement.
Yeah. It's like we live only for a DM. Like, that's not true in the slightest. Because we still have lives. We have, we can't post anything on social media if you don't even have a life to post.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Like you can only if I were to go out with my friends and post about it, people will be like, "Oh, like always on their phone, live to post." But I went out with my friends.
Exactly.
That's true. That's true.
Like, what do you think I'm posting about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the other side of it that's like less thought of.
And like one thing adults don't understand is that they think that like our whole world is just revolve around like DMs or like text messages. But like that is a good source of our communication with our friends.
Exactly.
Like we're not just on our phones texting nobody. Like we're texting our friends. It's the same concept as when they were kids being on the phone with their friends for like hours. It's the same. We're still communicating with our friends. We're just doing it a different way that they're used to. They're just biased.
Like their phone book is our contacts, basically.
Yeah.
Like it's nothing different. It's just a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
So technology seems to be a major topic when regarding the conversation about today's teenagers. So there's a few more statements to do with that. And the next one is they spend 5 to 6 hours a day texting, chatting, gaming, web surfing, streaming, and sharing videos and hanging out online.
Well, yeah, because the internet is such a vast thing There's so much to do on it.
Mhm.
Why would you not want to be doing things on it? It has so much to offer.
So, a lot of the conversation about teenagers today and technology is put in a negative light. In one book that a researcher had written, they called us iGens, the generation who had grown up with iPhones, and they stated that iGens have poor emotional health thanks to new media.
Just like don't think that our generation is kind of a part of that. Like I know that we kind of have grown up with like iPads in a way, but I think it's more like the generation that are 8 and like down kind of, or like even or 12 down is they're the prime generations who have grown up with iPads, because I know a lot of like people in our grade in our year and around our age do have gotten a phone when they're pretty young. But personally for me, like I don't think phones when I was born and like when I was like in my early stage of life, like it wasn't that big of a deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember when I was like little, all I would have was like the very broken, the first generation of an iPad,
Yeah,
and
like
then otherwise I'd just be playing out with the neighbors' kids.
yeah, like I'm kind of like a different case. Like I didn't get a phone until I was like 13, but I still had technology in my house a lot, and the only phones that we would kind of use other than my parents, we would have like really like iPhone 4s for
Oh,
music.
exactly. I had an iPod. That's not
Yeah,
even
I
being
had
a
an
child.
iPod
my
too.
my dad
That's very
gave me an
sweet.
iPod, like, well, it was his, and he was like, "Oh, you can use it for music." That
No,
was
That was
exactly.
my pride and joy. I loved that thing.
Oh my
Like, oh
god, I
my
miss my
god.
iPod, bro. And besides that, like I only had like the like a main like family computer, which isn't very different than when my parents were kids.
Yeah, that's like the same thing. Like,
So
in like the 90s, they were like the one big computer. Like,
yeah. Well,
exactly.
same thing.
to be fair, the year that we were born is where most of the iPhones started coming in, so it wasn't quite as widespread or widely used when we were growing up. But the generation now, as Mickey, you were saying, with Generation Alpha, that is a different story. It is very much integrated into their lives, and they would be more addicted to it than we are.
But I feel like that's not even their fault in the slightest.
It's not.
It's like
Not at
it's
all.
the parents' fault for giving them electronics, and also like they were just happened to be born when technology was really advanced.
Yeah, they're too young to comprehend the struggles and like the hard like the risks of technology, and they're too young to not like control themselves, but like, I don't know. It should be the parents, 100%.
To be
They
fair,
Yeah,
the parents themselves are the ones who have grown, well, they haven't grown up with technology, but they have gotten so used to using it, and it is just so accepted by society now to give a child an iPad so they are quiet and as a way to regulate them. So while you can blame it on the parents, it is also not the parents' fault. It is more
no.
society, how we've
Yeah.
um
yeah. It is a stigma now that like just giving a kid an iPad. Because I have a lot of baby cousins that like I go out to dinner with them. If they don't have an iPad in front of their face, they will not behave themselves,
Yeah.
and it's kind of It's kind of scary.
Yeah. It's weird. But it's like another thing about like you can't blame the parents is that like they also didn't grow up with technology, so they also don't know the risks. Like I feel like we're gonna be the best parents in that sense because we know the risks, we've dealt with it firsthand. Like parents,
Yeah.
when it was coming out, it was all a new thing, an exciting thing, and a good thing for them, so they've had no experience, they've had no one to guide them on how to raise a kid with technology you know
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
Now, an interesting perspective in the book that I mentioned earlier that the researcher had written, they said that iGens grow up more slowly, in that we seem to be more reluctant to grow up, such as in previous generations, we seem more likely to hang out with our parents and decline driver's licenses.
I think that's more of a personal thing. Like, just like for myself, I think, well, it's just like like a hypothesis, but because of the pandemic, we missed out on like the core years, I think. And we were just stuck inside and we could only use technology, and now we've grown dependent on it.
yeah.
And like our brains haven't really registered that it's okay to form connections with other people.
And that's a completely different conversation as well about how COVID has affected us, because at that point we were still in our preteen.
We were 12 and 13, weren't we?
So it's like prime time of like figuring yourself out and like
Exactly.
being a kid. Like
And
like your last years of being a kid.
exactly, last years of being a kid and having your last years of being a kid being influenced by all the media that you see on like TikTok or Instagram and all these perfect people, that's gonna take a detrimental like hit to your health.
I would also disagree though, because at that point I still did not have a phone. I had an iPad and I spent most of my time reading, and we did meet up with friends some points when we were allowed to have meetups in maybe backyards and still practice social distancing. But we did definitely miss out on that social interaction part.
Also the fact that we had to grow up fast because of this economy that we're living in now. Like we had to be able to get jobs and work hard because we literally can't sustain ourselves.
With we can't like even like jobs, like we kind of need to get a job now and start working towards our future now, or else by the time we need to like get our house of our own, we're not gonna have enough money or anything.
Exactly.
Especially now because it has become so increasingly common for adults to still graduate from high school, start having families, and return to their parents' basements.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also recommended.
Yeah, it's
Not
people
not
are
to
saying like you should stay with your parents till you're like 30.
Yeah, and like you should not move out for college. You should stay with your parents literally as long as you physically can to save money, because that's like the kind of the only way you can live unless you're like gonna be
Yeah.
rich.
And like of course you loved your family, but at some point when you're an adult who has trying to make your own family, you can't stay for that long. Like you
You
have
need to
like
start your life.
even in the wild, people like kids leave their parents.
The next statement isn't exclusive to our generation, but peer acceptance plays a major role in the current lives of a teen. Historically, that is how teenagers do think, but I personally think it has gotten slightly worse and slightly better for us as Gen Z, mostly because of social media.
Yeah, just think about our school. There's like certain groups of people that you just know what they are and like you wouldn't care if they liked you or didn't like you just because you know the kind of person that they are. And they fit certain stereotypes, you know what I mean? And you just know that like whatever they think about you doesn't matter. People don't know how to talk to other people anymore. They're like anonymous online, right? So they don't have to worry about acting nice because when they don't have a name attached to themselves, they can be as mean as they want. But when you're in person, those same rules don't apply, and people are a lot meaner.
I think essentially what it is that peer acceptance in person is not as important anymore, because as a generation, I think we have gotten better at inclusion and accepting people as they are. However, I think on social media, you do have to be kind of careful about what you post and who you're posting to.
Yeah, I think another problem with that whole inclusion thing is that back in like our parents' time, you know when someone's just being like a racist. Like you know, they don't try to hide it. But now you don't know who to trust because everyone's always acting inclusive, but they're hiding what they really think about you.
Yeah, it's so easy to be like, oh, everybody matters, blah blah. You should be kind to everybody, but like you never know what people are actually thinking.
Yeah. You don't know who they are online either. Because when you're online, that's I think who you really are because there's no consequences, right? You could be talking to the nicest person in your math class, but online they're posting the N-word in the Instagram comment section.
Absolutely, yeah, good point. Now, the next statement that we have isn't a negative one. It is actually saying that a big positive is that teenagers are wise to the challenges facing their generation and are taking action.
Yes, I agree with that. Like, okay, I don't want to get all like whatever, but the older generations calling us sensitive because we don't, just let them berate us. And because we took a stand on racism and sexism, they're calling us sensitive. And I don't understand how that correlates in the slightest.
Yeah, literally. Just because we're brave enough to stand up to what they were too scared to do, they're calling us sensitive.
Exactly.
Like, oh, you shouldn't have to worry about that. Like, oh, just forget it. Like, blah, blah, blah.
Or they call us defensive when we try and stand for what we believe to be right, as if they aren't at political rallies arguing with the other side. Really brutally.
The other side of it, though, is also you do have to be so careful about what you say, how you say things now.
That is true.
100%.
That's mostly because we don't let them get away with everything anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is two sides to it. That okay, we are going a bit too far with this inclusivity thing. Like now we just don't have any boundaries.
It's because there's no line.
Yeah, that's what we did draw
It's a
a line somewhere.
slippery slope. Like
Yeah.
and we're down the slope. Like we're going down the slope.
Very fast. There's no breaks.
Like especially when people think they're like furries. Yeah, people think it's weird, but also like, how do you get mad at them? Because like, oh, and they're like, oh, you can't tell me what I am. Like, it's what I identify as. It's like, oh, but like, how do you say like that's bad? I don't know.
There are two very extremes. You either include everyone or you exclude everyone, and it is very hard to find a middle ground because who draws the line and where do you draw the line?
Everyone has different beliefs on what they think the line should be. For the whole conservatives and liberals, they're on the very opposite sides, and they cannot agree where the line should be drawn. And that's why we have so many political, almost wars at this point.
But does there like need to be a line? Because I think if there was no line and if it was like how it was back in the old days, then there's people getting hurt, right? There's people who can't be themselves. But then nowadays, yeah, it sucks that there's freaking like dogs walking around who are humans. But like at the same time, yeah, we think it's weird and it's uncomfortable for us, but they're not affecting us really. Maybe in the rare case they'll like bite you or something. But like,
no one's getting hurt.
No one's getting hurt.
But yeah, I think it's just because it's all so new to almost everybody that like the way that we don't like people who think that they're animals, that's the way that the old generations feel about people who like the same gender.
Yeah, but the difference is that they're still human.
They're still human.
They still identify as humans.
And they had gay people when they were kids too.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they just spawned out of nowhere.
Exactly. They just decided that they wanted to be more accepting of the world.
Yeah, that's true. Our next statement is that teens today have been shown more leniency. They barely hold themselves responsible.
I agree with that actually.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And one main reason for this is because of the new proficiency scale.
Well, let me explain the proficiency scale for one. So in our schooling system here, up until grade 10, we are not given grades in school that are letter grades, ABC. We are given one on a proficiency scale.
It goes emerging, developing, proficient, extending. And
extending mean the highest.
Yeah, and no one knows what they mean in letter grade terms.
They are babying us in a sense, like incomplete, i.e., that's a fail. If you do a test and it's below 50, then and it's a fail, right? Instead of doing an F like they used to, which is like if you see an F on a paper, it's a lot worse than if you see an IE.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they changed that because they didn't want us to get our feelings hurt, but at the same time, sometimes we need to feel bad about our grades so we have motivation to bring it up.
Exactly. If we don't like actually suffer consequences for our actions,
it's the same thing with
we'll just keep doing those actions.
Yeah. It's the same thing with proficient, extending, developing. Instead of getting a C, which sounds a lot worse than developing, now we get developing, which is like, oh, you're almost there. So then if someone gets a developing, then they'll be happy with it instead of trying to work hard to bring that up to a B or an A.
Yeah, we're settling for the average.
The average,
because they're making it seem like it's okay.
Yeah.
Or it's like, oh yeah, you're getting there. So we're like, oh, okay, I'm getting there. I can stop working. I can stop working hard because apparently they're okay with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the reason I think that we're not, that we might be perceived to not hold ourselves responsible is that we are not being allowed to hold ourselves responsible. You're making it, adults that is, are making it too easy to find a way out.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're making it too easy for us. And while it's really nice to have an easier life, we need some sort of drive, some sort of challenge to actually like accomplish something.
Yeah.
Because now we're all just becoming lazy.
And I know we just argued we aren't sensitive, but like they are kind of turning us sensitive, and it's not our fault.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're babying us so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Like back,
They're not showing us the real world,
if
right?
you compare school now to school, even when like our parents were kids, even when like kids who were born in the 2000s, like that high school years, like high school is so much easier and like more like easier in benefit of us, you know? Like we don't there's no detention, there's no mean teachers, like they're all, I don't know.
Consequences, exactly.
Yeah.
Because I even remember that I don't get much homework. Like, and I'm in grade
I get
11,
no homework.
right? And
0.
my parents are always questioning me, like, oh, did you do your homework today? Like, are you going to do your homework? I'm like, I don't have any homework. And they're
Yeah.
like, what do you mean? You're in grade 11. When I was in grade 11, I had tons of homework every night.
Yeah.
But we
Literally.
don't get that anymore.
No.
Maybe
And
it's like one sheet per 2 weeks.
or like if you need to finish a project, then you maybe do it. Like I literally don't get any homework.
Exactly. And I think, just like kind of going back to the beginning a little bit, I think another thing about us not being responsible for our own actions is that people diagnose themselves with everything. Like, yeah, like, oh, I couldn't do my homework today. I have severe depression and anxiety and bipolar disorder. What do you mean? If you had that, you'd be locked up somewhere.
Yeah. Like there's a difference between having anxiety and being anxious.
Yeah.
Like just because you're having anxiety about something doesn't mean that you have anxiety. It just means it's a feeling, you know?
Yeah.
There's a line.
Yeah, that is the consequence, I think, of social media because, of course, it's great that there is so much awareness, but it has led to the line between a feeling and a diagnosis to be blurred a little bit.
Exactly. And not only that, but it's almost romanticized to have something wrong with you. Like, people, like, it's glorified in a sense that, like, if you don't have depression, you're boring.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I
Like, I see, like, a lot of posts every day where it's like, oh, you're really funny. Thanks. This is my depression. No. You can be funny without being sad all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do think it does extend out of just mental health issues as well, because even with the LGBTQ movements and everything, I personally do think it is around the same idea of that. Like there's so much awareness and it is great, but I think at this point, Gen Z, as we are, again with the inclusivity, we have accepted anyone who is LGBTQ, and now it is getting to the point where we're almost celebrating them above people who are
Yeah.
not part of that community, and that is not what I personally think equality should mean, because equality should mean that we are all held at the same standard, we all have the same opportunities, and in this case it means that minorities are often getting more opportunities than people who aren't minorities at this point.
Yeah, there is something about that actually with minorities getting more opportunities. Like universities and jobs have a certain quota that they have to meet now to like accept into the schools a certain amount of minorities, not even based on their qualifications, just to meet their quota, just so they can meet their diversity initiative or whatever it is. And then they'll just stop accepting minorities, and it's going completely in the opposite direction of equality. I don't know, like what, like who thought of this? It's being forced. You can't force equality. You just have to know what being equal means. You can't
Yeah.
teach someone how to be equal. They should know it.
And the thing is, I think that we as Gen Z, or majority of people in our school at least, I think we have gotten to that point where we have just understood it. We are just good with it. I think it is the older generations now who are trying to undo or try and meet that standard when they really don't have to, almost, because they're doing it in the wrong way, whereas we have gotten it and it's working for us.
Yeah, because older generations don't like. It's not like they're trying to actually understand. It's like a homework assignment that they just have to. Okay, yeah, like this is fine, and that's it. They don't actually, in their heart, accept it. They just have to say that they do. And also in media, the amount of forced representation is backfiring so much.
Yeah.
Like talking with people of the older generation, like their major concern is that, like, I'm fine with it, but it's being shoved down our throats.
Exactly.
Even like Disney movies, like representation of like the black community, like why do we need to change a princess that deliberately has like white skin and like blonde hair or whatever, and then make the, like completely change the whole image.
Exactly. And not even with that, you can totally do that as long as it's for the right reasons that, oh, this actor was better than another one who looked traditionally like the character. But for characters such as Snow White, part of Snow White's story is that she has skin as white as snow. And
Her name is literally Snow White.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was a story made in a time where, it wasn't very inclusive, that is fine. But if it is the story that has that, respect that story, even if it might be outdated, and leave it at that. Create new opportunities for new inclusivity to happen.
If your only ways of being inclusive is to remake movies that no one wants a remake of, but live action, and replacing the characters with like diverse actors, you're not being inclusive. The way you want to be inclusive is make a new entire character that is black or is brown or whatever.
Yeah.
And even then, it is not necessary for that character's personality to be their skin color, to be their sexuality. And I think most shows and movies that I've seen that do get it right are actually animated ones where it is more story based than the actual characters, such as Spider Man Into the Spider Verse or Arcane League of Legends, because they have brilliant representation. And part of that is that it is just natural, it is just there. The characters just are this.
That's not their whole character.
Exactly.
They're not existing just to be gay.
Exactly. That's why I think shows like Heartstopper are really actually like they're harming the community more.
No, but Heartstopper is different because Heartstopper is like it's like a romance.
Yeah, it's a romance, but I feel like just the way that it is, it's not realistic and it's not showing the actual lives of like maybe you can relate to it, but just me personally, I think it's just trying too hard to be something and it's not really working.
But the thing with Heartstopper is it is media made for the LGBTQ community, and it is established as that is an LGBTQ story. And there are many movies and shows that are surrounded around Black people, and that is absolutely okay. You just do not have to be having that in every single show.
Yeah.
Because that's not how the world actually is. The world is, oh, you do have some gay people, you have some colored, some white people. Like obviously there will be everywhere. Or
Yeah, I think people are forgetting that white people actually exist. It's okay to have them in your movies without being racist.
And now back to our statements. There is one that is on teenagers' self-worth and how now it is more based on how many likes we are getting on social media or seeing photos of their friends doing things or parties, getting messages about parties they haven't been invited to. That is what this article is under the impression that we base our self-worth off of.
I think for me personally, that is somewhat true. Like if I see all my friends having fun and hanging out, like yes, I understand that it's the highlights of like their week or whatever, but if I didn't get to do that and I spent my week just laying in bed on my phone or just laying in my bed like reading or not actually having social interaction, I will be jealous.
And that's just natural, of course, but it's not it's so much basing our entire self-worth of that. It's just that it does have an influence.
I think it also makes you want to try, like, there is like some sort of kind of healthy competition part to it where it makes you want to go out and have fun and do other things. Yeah, maybe the intentions are kind of corrupt that you want to be able to post about it later, but you're still going out, and as you're hanging out with your friends, you realize how fun it actually is, and you let yourself, like, be out there more.
Now, we just have two more statements left. One is that there's a perception that this generation should be the happiest and the most content because they've got so much connectivity across the world and so much information at their fingertips, but that connectivity is actually disconnecting people from real friendships and the opportunity to enjoy the world together. It's creating absolutely unrealistic ideals that young people can't get to.
Okay, it's not exactly disconnecting us from real friendships. It's more just like it's getting rid of empathy. People don't feel bad about anything that they do in the real world anymore because they're so used to doing whatever they want on the internet. When you're online, you can do and say whatever you want to do and say. right? And because of that, people lost the ability to care about what they do. When you're back in the real world trying to make real connections with people, you don't have any empathy anymore because you're used to what you do online. People are just so much more mean now. And not even just basically teenagers, but even the older generations are so mean. I could be walking on the sidewalk, and you know the rules, stay to the right of the sidewalk. It's just kind of basic common sense. So why are these people taking up all the space and making me step on the grass?
I've gotten dirty looks before because I am just a teenager. Like, I've never done anything wrong to you. I consider myself a very, nice or polite person at least. But there is obviously the stigma and the stereotypes around teenagers. So automatically when they see me, they have an idea that, oh, if I'm going into a store, I might like pickpocket.
You're gonna steal something.
Exactly. Now, one other statistic that I found quite interesting was that the rates of drugs and alcohol in young people have actually declined. Comparing to teenagers 20 years ago, it was quite common for underage drinking and for partaking of drugs or smoking.
Sure, they all smoked like cigars and cigarettes.
Now they all smoke vapes. And even more because it's so much easier to get a hold of.
But to be fair, it's not like every other person is doing so. I would say that it has declined, but it has also led to a different type of drugs, or it is more hidden, I would say.
Yeah, I think like hard drugs like cocaine, no teenagers doing that right now. And I think even the teachers and everything, the authority figures have given up on trying to stop it because kids don't take them seriously at all.
No,
If they
no
want
one
to hit
takes
a
them
vape,
seriously.
that's true.
They don't do anything.
They actually don't do anything at all.
Like,
Why
what
would-
are their consequences? Oh, you're
like
gonna have a
their
little
threats are just so empty.
You're gonna have a library session. They can't even call attention.
Yeah, we don't have a detention anymore. Oh, I'm gonna call your parents. Most kids who think that they need to do drugs are because they don't have a good home life. So what is calling the parents gonna do about that?
Now to our final statement to wrap it up. This one's more of a fun one, and it is actually a definition of teenager that was in one of the articles. And it says, teenager, someone who is ready for the zombie apocalypse but not for the history test tomorrow.
Yes, that's actually so true. I don't care how like cringe that sounds. It's actually really true.
Yeah, I do quite agree because I've actually had conversations with classmates during lunchtime on what we would do if there was a zombie apocalypse.
They're fleshed out plans too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It includes going to people's houses whose parents are policemen and getting weapons from there, and who would drive whose truck and everything. It's quite thought out.
I think also just the aspect that like we know the world's gonna end really soon.
Oh, absolutely. Climate.
And we just don't know how, so we have to prepare for any moment.
Exactly. I would say we're quite educated on everything with the world, whether that's through social media or the news. But I think we as a generation, we're very focused on the future and we do quite worry about it, even though we want to hold on to the past. Because we know that the future isn't going to turn out great. We know that the generations before us have made mistakes that we are going to have to fix. But
Yeah, we're aware of it. That's the good thing. Like, we know.
Yeah, at least we know what to do to like have somewhat of a plan to fix it.
yeah, it's a good thing and a bad thing that we are aware though, because to be fair, it does give me quite a bit of anxiety to think about climate change and how that's going to affect us, because the generation now who are in government and in positions of power to do it, they are not going to be the ones who are going to be alive during that time when all we will have is smoke-filled skies in summer. We will be in the prime of our lives with families and everything, and that is terrifying. But at least we know that if the world does end by zombie apocalypse, we will be totally fine. Well, that's today's episode. Thank you for listening, and I hope you got something out of it. And we will see you next month for episode 2. Goodbye.
Bye!